The magic island of Euclidia is over 4,000 miles from Los Angeles, California. And now our friends of the Adventuring Gregory party are just that far from the magic island. Yes, they're safely home at last. However, as well as we've learned to know Mrs. Gregory, her daughter Joan, Jerry Hall, and Captain Bradford, it doesn't seem likely that they'll stay safely at home very long. In fact, as we pick up the story now at Mrs. Gregory's mansion in Los Angeles, plans are being discussed which haven't anything to do with staying home and being safe. Captain Bradford, Mrs. Gregory, and Joan are talking in the library while waiting for Jerry to join them.
But, Mother, why must we hurry about our plans to return to Euclidia?
Because, Joan, dear, the Euclidians are hurrying with whatever plans they're making about us.
I will concede that.
And another thing, Joan, which is not as apparent to you as it is to us. Something has to be done about that island, and done quickly, or it'll be too late.
Too late for what, Captain Bradford?
Too late to prevent those scientists bringing all their inventions to this country and doing as they please.
And would that be such a terrible thing?
Yes, Joan, it would.
But, Mother,
I know what you're going to say. The Euclidians know far more than we do, and they would help the world with all their marvelous discoveries.
Precisely, and that is true.
Granted that they could introduce a culture, an advanced education which the world needs badly, I still feel that their methods in bringing this education to us might be a little too drastic for a majority of the population.
You do not want to see your people educated, Captain?
It isn't that, Joan.
Of course it isn't. And let me remind you of one very vital thing you appear to have overlooked. There are a great many kinds of scientific education we can do nicely without. Now, for example, I think most people prefer sitting down to a good meal, to one of those concentrated food tablets we had on board the submarine.
Yet you admitted the concentrated food pellets provided adequate nourishment.
Sure they did, Joan, and they certainly served their purpose, but that was an emergency.
Exactly. And everything done on Euclidia is the same. Your airplanes can fly 1,000 miles an hour, but except for emergencies, no one has any reason to fly 1,000 miles an hour.
Suppose another country would attempt to take over the control of this country. Would you not like to have some 1,000-mile-an-hour planes then?
Well, naturally, but that's another emergency. War isn't a continual state of affairs. What your mother is trying to explain to you is that too much knowledge, too much speed, too much perfection rob us of many of the leisurely, pleasant ways of living, which are, after all, the only pleasures in living.
I must confess, I do not see it as you do.
You will, dear, after you've seen and enjoyed more of the pleasures in our world.
I should like that. But how am I to enjoy those pleasures if we are immediately going to organize an expedition and return to Euclidia?
Jerry will be able to take you around and show you a great many things, Joan. And even though you know far more than any of your instructors will be able to tell you, I want you to attend school.
School? I am to be taught to read and write when I have known that since I was 3 years old?
Not quite that bad, Joan. Jerry has another year of high school to complete, and your mother and I thought it would be nice if you went with Jerry. I'm sure we could arrange to have you admitted.
High school? What is a high school?
Well, I think you'd better form your own conclusions about that. At any rate, you will remain here in school. I'll have a housekeeper and guardian look after your interests while Tex and I are gone.
You and the captain are going where?
Back to Euclidia. We've got to take charge of that place, Joan. Put those scientists under some sort of regulation where their discoveries can be used only for good and protect the world against any wild ideas they might have.
But you would not go back there without Jerry and me.
Yes, Joan, dear. You and Jerry must stay here.
Why should we stay here?
Oh, many reasons. Your safety, for one.
But what of your safety?
Oh, I'll be safe enough. Tex and I are going to take along sufficient equipment to ensure our safety. And we'll turn the tables on Euclidia this time.
Yes, don't worry about us, Joan. We'll be as safe as we would be right here at home.
You are very definite about that.
Why, of course, Joan. We'll be perfectly safe.
Then why would not I be safe with you?
What?
If you will be safe, why would I not be safe with you?
Yes, of course. I think if you'll excuse me, Pat, I'll run along.
Oh, no, you'll do nothing of the kind. Sit right down here and help me get out of this.
You will not be able to extricate yourselves so easily. The fact remains that if you will be safe on a trip to Euclidia, I will be equally safe.
Well, there's a certain amount of risk connected with any such expedition.
And we feel that you and Jerry will be safer at home.
Would you not be safer at home?
Why, yes, I suppose we would.
Then I do not want you to go.
You what?
I do not want Mother to go if she will be in danger.
But, Joan, I am your mother, and I will say what we will and will not do.
That I do not like about your world. Older people are always allowed to do as they please, even if they are wrong. while younger ones are forbidden to do the things that are quite safe, proper, and harmless.
Well, now, Joan, you're getting into the oldest discussion known to modern parents and teachers. No one has ever settled it to anyone's satisfaction yet.
I realize that your training on that strange island has given you a great many ideas which do not fit in any too well with the conditions as you will find them here. But I think I can explain why parents are allowed to give orders to their children and why children should obey.
I will be very glad to hear your reason, Mother.
Well, as I see it, parents give orders and children respect their wishes, not because parents are so wonderfully smart or have any more rights than the children, but simply because parents are older and their judgment should be better in a majority of cases. Parents make mistakes, lots of them, but their mistakes should be fewer because of their greater experience.
That is entirely reasonable, and I can understand how that might hold true in your world.
Good for you, Pat. You sure made that clearer than I would have. Now, are you satisfied that your mother is competent to arrange your activities, Joan?
While we are living here, yes. But on a trip to Euclidia, no.
But, Joan, dear...
The situation is entirely reversed, Mother. On matters pertaining to the island, my judgment is better than yours.
Now, where do we go from here?
I give up, Tex. We'll have to try it again tomorrow.
I thought Jerry was coming over tonight.
Jerry is to be here at 7 o'clock.
He'd better hurry. It's 1 minute of 7.
Then he will be here in 60 seconds.
I'm afraid, my dear, that you won't find things in our world running exactly on schedule as they did on the Magic Island.
Why should they not?
Time isn't quite as precious around here.
But Jerry said that he wanted very much to see me. And if he wanted that so very much, he would be on time to look at me.
Well, perhaps you'll learn that a young lady can't always depend on all a young man says.
I do not like that. 7 o'clock was the time agreed upon, and I shall expect to see Jerry at 7.
Well, I hope for Jerry's sake he gets here on time.
But after all, Joan, dear, the time is not so very important.
Indeed it is. Jerry is going to take me to a motion picture show.
I don't know about that.
Decidedly not.
But, Mother, you said Jerry might show me some of the things he enjoys so much.
Yes, and at the right time, you may see them all, but not tonight.
What reason have you for that?
Well, we're being watched a little too closely now. And there's 7 o'clock. Looks as if Jerry had played you false.
Jerry will be here.
Hello, everybody. Here I am, right on the dot.
Figured it mighty close, though, Jerry.
Well, how come? I said 7, and the clock was just striking as Johnson showed me to this room.
Now, what is your opinion as to Jerry's punctuality?
Better than I had hoped for. Won't you sit down, Jerry?
Oh, thanks. Gee, but you look nice, Mrs. Gregory.
Thank you, Jerry.
Do I not look nice, Jerry?
You're off to a bad start, son.
Oh, sure, you look nice. But, well, so does your mother. She comes first.
There, Joan. Now, that's a good example of what we were discussing. Jerry came to see you. We all know his interest is more in you than the rest of us. Yet he addressed me first simply because I'm older.
No, I didn't. I said it because you look nice. I couldn't see anything else.
Jerry.
Go right ahead along those lines, boy, and Joan will ask Johnson to throw you out.
Well, gee, you know what I mean.
Oh, of course, Jerry. Now, you two forget your eternal quarreling for a few minutes and listen to what Tex and I have to say.
Oh, sure, Mrs. Gregory. But we got to go pretty quick, or it's going to make it too late to go to a show.
We are not going to a show.
Huh? What's wrong?
Nothing definite, but Tex and I have decided that it's not any too wise to allow you youngsters to run around at night just now.
Is that not silly, Jerry?
Well, it sure makes me feel like a baby, but maybe there's a reason for it.
There is, and a good one. Don't forget that there's one of the Euclidean scientists running around loose in this town. Or at least he was the last time we heard anything about him.
You refer to Thales?
Yes, dear, that Euclidean electrical wizard.
And you think Thales might try to do something to Joan or me?
Don't you think he might?
Well, yes. I guess so.
Jerry, I am disappointed in you.
Joan, don't forget that these Euclideans are still after my formula. Don't forget that they may not feel any too kindly disposed towards us after we left a couple of their submarines helpless out in the Catalina Channel. And above all, don't forget that they know we're planning another expedition to the island.
Oh, I know all that. Well, I guess you're right. We ought to stick pretty close together until this thing is over with.
If the danger is as great as that, why was it not dangerous for Jerry to come over here tonight alone?
Well, it was dangerous, Joan, and I should have thought of that during the day.
Well, you're here now, Jerry, and we'll see that you get home all right. But in the meantime, suppose we do a little planning.
About what?
Our return to Euclidia. You and Joan might have a lot of ideas that would prove helpful to us.
Yeah, and this time we'll know a lot more about what we're running into, won't we?
Jerry,
Yes, Mrs. Gregory?
well, I know this isn't going to be pleasant news to you, or at least you'll think it isn't, but you won't be going with us when we return to the island.
Huh? I mean, what?
That is what Mother and the captain have told me, Jerry. You and I are not to be allowed to accompany them on their trip to Euclidia.
But, gee, why not?
Too dangerous, Jerry, and you should be in school.
Oh, but it's just as dangerous for you folks.
That was my argument.
Joan will remain here, and you may spend as much time with her as your studies will permit, Jerry. But even here, you must be very careful.
Remember that there is at least one Euclidean in California, and he might decide to strike at you and Joan after we're gone.
Well, you bet he might. And that's why I think Joan and I'd be a lot safer if we were with you.
Now, Jerry...
Yes, Mother, Jerry is quite correct. It would be most unwise to leave us here.
Nevertheless, we're going to do just that.
But what if somebody kidnaps Joan while you're gone?
That's your job, Jerry, to see that nothing of the sort happens.
That is not fair to Jerry. It is entirely too much of a responsibility for one so young.
Huh? Hey, how old do you think you are?
I know that I am right. It is not wise for us to remain here.
Well, we'll be the judges of that, Joan.
Well, Mrs. Gregory, I'm not trying to be rude, and I know that you're trying to do what you think is best for Joan and me. But we could be a lot of good to you. And if you leave us behind, well, we'll get a boat of our own and come down there anyway.
Steady, Jerry.
Jerry is correct. He does not mean to be disrespectful to either of you. But our place is with your expedition. And with your permission, or without it, we will return to Euclidia.
Joan, dear, do you realize what you're saying?
Oh, sure she does, Mrs. Gregory. We'll do anything you say. And we don't mean to be arguing with older people. But I'm going back to that magic island if I have to walk back.
14 years ago, Joan Gregory was lost in a shipwreck in the South Pacific Ocean. And 14 years her mother spent searching for her the world over. When Joan was found on the magic island, a strange place which the scientists living there have named Euclidia, it seemed that Mrs. Gregory's troubles were at an end. Now, however, we find that this is not the case, as the island of Euclidia contains so many powerful and unusual scientific devices and discoveries that it must be captured and its knowledge turned over to the world at large. Mrs. Gregory and Captain Bradford have decided to return to the island and take it over, using the captain's formula for the universal solvent as a weapon. Jerry and Joan are not to be taken along, and we'll see what Jerry and Joan think of that idea as we find them sitting on a bench on the corner of Hollywood and Vine in Hollywood.
Well, Joan, what do you think of it?
What do I think of what?
Oh, Hollywood.
It is very nice.
Is that all?
What did you expect me to say?
Oh, that it was swell and the greatest place you ever saw, and all that kind of talk.
I could not well say that, Jerry.
Well, why not?
How could I compare Hollywood with other places when it is the only place, except for Euclidia, that I have ever seen?
Yeah, I guess that's right.
Of course it is right.
Well, even if you can't tell whether it's better than any other place, you know if you like it or not, don't you?
I have said I liked it very much.
Yeah, you sound like it.
Jerry, you are a very strange person.
Huh?
You expect everyone to become wildly enthusiastic about anything you show them. Perhaps I am not as greatly impressed as you would wish.
Well, you ought to be. Look at all the automobiles scooting around here. What about that? You didn't have any cars on Euclidia.
We had no need for them. However, if the Euclideans were in charge of these passageways...
Hey,
would...
wait a minute. These things are streets, not passageways.
Very well, streets. If the Euclideans were in charge of these streets, there would be some semblance of order maintained. The manner in which various vehicles dash around each other is very poorly controlled.
Okay. Nobody likes the traffic any better than you do, but nobody's been able to figure out how to handle it any other way.
I believe I could suggest a plan.
You could?
Certainly.
Well, if you can do that, you'll find the police will give you a medal.
That does not sound correct.
Why? What's wrong with that?
A moment ago, you showed me a police officer arresting a man.
Well, yeah, sure. They arrest you if you do something wrong, but they can be mighty nice to you if you do something right, too.
I wonder if I will ever understand this strange country.
This strange country? After living on that crazy island, you think this country is strange?
On Euclidia, everything was well-ordered, regular, and perfectly controlled. While here, everyone seems to be doing much as they please.
Well, why not? This is a free country.
But everything is so carelessly done.
What's wrong now?
That lunch we had.
Oh, lunch? What was the matter with it?
We ate it without the slightest regard for what our previous meal had been. You made no attempt to note the quantity we consumed, and at least 2 of the ingredients of the meal duplicated items included in our breakfast this morning.
What's the difference how much we had or what it was? We had a good lunch, didn't we?
It was excellent.
Okay, then forget about what we had yesterday or what we're going to eat tomorrow. And you can forget all the rest of that sort of stuff you learned on that island, too.
Do you not consider my Euclidean training of value?
Oh, sure. When there's something scientific to be figured out, I guess you might come in handy. But when it comes to getting along with the rest of the folks around town, you won't do so good if you keep trying to fix everything you see the way they do it on the Magic Isle.
I'm merely trying to help.
Well, all right. But if you keep on telling everybody you meet how they ought to do things, you're going to help yourself to a lot of trouble.
What have I done that is so terrible?
Well, what did you say to that traffic cop?
Cop?
Well, officer, then. Well, what did you say to him?
I merely tried to explain to him that his method of procedure was quite wrong.
Yeah, that's all you did. Just told the cop how to run a street corner.
Jerry, you must admit there was logic in my contention. If the officer would sound his whistle before a motorist did something wrong, would it not be better than waiting until after the fault was committed?
Oh, sure, swell. But how are you going to know that a man will break a traffic rule until you see him do it?
If the whistle was sounded continuously as a warning to all motorists, there would be no violations of rules.
And how long do you suppose people would stand for a cop standing on a corner blowing a whistle all the time?
The people would not like it.
Of course they wouldn't like it. You can't make a racket like that in the middle of a street and keep it up.
Perhaps I do not fully understand how things must be done here.
You don't. And if you don't want to get in bed with everybody you meet, you'd better let things alone.
I am sorry if you are angry with me, Jerry.
Oh, I'm not angry. I just don't like to see you being such a sap all the time.
A sap? What is a sap?
Oh, it doesn't matter. It's only slang, and you don't like slang.
No, I do not like slang. It is so much easier to express oneself in English.
But slang is English.
Slang is no language.
Oh.
It was originated and has been furthered and added to by people who are too lazy to learn the collection of expressive modifying words which would allow greater expression than the weirdest slang phrases.
All right, I'm lazy.
Agreed.
Well, just the same, I know how to get along in this country. And if you want to do what I do, you'll get along better.
I am willing to do as you tell me, Jerry.
Well, okay. Now, we're going to see a picture show. And while we're in there, you mustn't make a sound. Don't say a word while the show is on.
Is not the picture show merely the projection of images from a celluloid strip of sensitized materials known to you as film?
That's it. And you can hear them talk, too, just like the stage.
Jerry, I do not enjoy correcting your misleading statement, but motion pictures cannot be like the stage. The characters in the picture are not actually alive.
Look, I don't mean to start a war over this. I just told you not to talk in the show.
But, Jerry, what will be the harm if I do speak in the show?
Well, people around you won't like it. They pay their money to listen to the actors. And if you've got any questions to answer them, well, wait till the show's over.
Very well.
Say, hey, what's that extra about?
What is an extra?
Oh, something special in the paper. Big news of some kind.
News of what?
Well, how do I know till I see the paper? Hey, didn't he say something about 2 submarines?
Jerry, those 2 Euclidean submarines.
Yeah, I'm afraid so. Hey, extra, come over here, will you?
Coming right up, buddy. Read all about it. They're fishing up submarines in our harbor now. There you are.
All right.
What does it say, Jerry?
Well, they found them all right.
May I see the paper?
Oh, sure, take a look.
2 strange submarines believed to be anchored in outer channels.
Yes, sir. That's them. They found them all right.
I am not sure. It says believed to be.
Well, pretty soon that means for sure. We know they're out there, and everybody else will know it soon.
But, Jerry, how could they see those 2 submarines in 6 fathoms of water?
How do you know they were in 6 fathoms of water?
That is how we left them.
Oh, sure. And that was the night before last at midnight.
Of course, it is possible that the submarine which was following us has been released from the magnetic bombs I placed near it.
Well, I'd say it was pretty sure they'd been free before this.
Then that submarine would not be found by anyone.
Why not?
The commander would either return to Euclidia, or if G-47 ordered the vessel to aid Thales in his work locally, they would remain well hidden.
Maybe you're right about that. But how about the submarine we were in?
That would remain perfectly stationary in the position at which we stabilized it.
Well, that's your idea of it. Now, here's mine. This paper says 2 strange submarines were seen in the outer channel. And they don't get it... out extras about things like that unless they're pretty sure what they're talking about.
But 2 submarines could not have been seen.
But 2 submarines were seen.
Can you explain how that could be possible?
I think I can. Now listen to this. That submarine that was following us might have had to come up to the surface for a supply of air. And if they had to use all their air getting out of the spot we left them in. That right?
Such a thing is barely possible, though not probable.
Well, anything is probably possible with a problem. Oh, well, anything can happen where those Euclideans are concerned.
Granted.
Then if they had to pick up that outer sub, the one we escaped from, and if they were towing it with their electromagnets, wouldn't they bring their tow to the surface when they came up?
Jerry, you may be right.
Well, sure I'm right.
But why would the Euclideans do such a foolish thing as to come to the surface in the daylight?
Maybe they were having so much trouble with their boats that they didn't have any chance to stay underwater. Anyhow, they've been seen, and we'd better get right over to your mother's house and tell her and the captain.
But we were going to a moving picture show.
Well, golly whiskers, a picture show. Here, we've got the whole country excited over a couple of Euclidean submarines in the Los Angeles harbor, and you want to go to a picture show.
I have seen many Euclidean submarines, and never have I seen one of your moving pictures.
Well, you can see one some other time. We're going to your mother's and tell them all about this.
Will these extras, as you call them, not be available at Mother's house?
Well, not as quickly as we get them here at the corner of Hollywood and Vine. So I'll bet Johnson has heard it over the radio.
I beg your pardon, young man?
Huh? Oh, did you speak to me, sir?
Yes, I'm sorry to bother you, but as you can see, I am blind.
Oh, yeah.
I wonder if you would do something for me.
Well, I haven't got very much, mister, but...
Oh, no, not that. I am not begging. That is, not begging for money. All I ask from you is a little information.
Oh, sure. What do you want to know?
I believe I heard a paper boy crying an extra.
Uh-huh, yeah. He's just up the street a little ways.
Perhaps you could call him for this gentleman, Jerry.
Well, I can try whistling.
No, young man. That would do no good. I could not read the paper after you secured it for me.
Oh, that's right.
I thought you might be willing to read me a few lines from your paper. Just the headlines, or tell me something of what the news is.
We can do that easily.
Oh, sure. It says they found 2 strange-looking submarines in the Catalina Island Channel.
2 strange submarines? From what country?
Well, that's what makes them so strange. They're not like any subs owned by any country in the world.
And what further news of them?
Well, that's all. Maybe there'll be more out later.
Quite possibly. Thank you, young man. And you, young lady, perhaps I may help you when we meet again.
Say, there was something funny about that guy.
Yes, Jerry. That man will be very dangerous to us.
Well, how do you know?
He was not blind.
Not blind?
No, I was watching his eyes as I stood where I could see behind those glasses he wore. He was reading every word on the front page of your newspaper while you talked to him. And I have seen those eyes before this.
You what?
I have seen those eyes on the island of Euclidia. That man is Thales.
Thales? The Euclidean scientist who put Johnson's radio out of commission?
Same. Thales is watching us.
Oh, gee whiz. We'd better beat her right home and tell the captain your mother. Oh, why'd I let him walk away?
You could not be expected to know him. You only heard his voice over the radio, and he was carefully disguising it then.